Yeah, so let's talk a little bit. Again, I watched the video, and he made some comments about the motion and all. But I think the part that maybe came across a little differently is the people don't want to understand. I think they do want to understand. I think we educate people incorrectly so that they don't understand.
Hmm.
We don't tell them exactly what it is. He made a comment, said, you know, people that are wrong versus it's people that are wrong versus people that are educated. If a person's not educated about it, that doesn't make them not wanting to learn. It just makes them not understanding it. And then when you have you don't educate them properly to the situation, then it becomes a misunderstanding, and then all sorts of crazy things happen.
Hmm.
Um, you know, one of the things he commented on, which was true, is that ball going down the lane, um, and the overlay, you couldn't see the difference.
Hmm.
We know that.
Not till the very end,
Not till
where
the
it
very
kind of
end.
kind of got blurry or it got separated.
Well, he called it blur at the end of the patent, and he's 100% correct. It does not. That's friction.
Hmm.
A cover stock on two balls with two different drill patterns will probably look very, very, very similar to the naked eye going down the lane.
Hmm.
Absolutely true.
Yeah.
Even when we put our charts up for many times, you don't see a variation on dramatic drill patterns like a pin up versus a pin down. And again, he questioned whether that would be dramatic or not. And to the naked eye, it's probably not.
Right.
And we don't disagree. It's
And
You're not going to get one drill pad and then the ball's going to hook 20 boards, and the
Mhm.
other drill pad is going to hook 10 boards. It's probably not going to happen because of friction.
And granted, this is Throwbot throwing it, who is much more accurate than you or I or any
Anyone
Joe
else.
Blow out there.
Right.
Um,
And there's no question because we have data coming from Specto, which picks up the data points along the way, the path of the ball, and graphs it.
mhm.
So we do that. I mean, we've been doing it. We are the technical ball company for that reason. We analyze it all the way through the back of the pin deck. And I think that's where the misconception of layouts mattering versus not mattering comes into play.
Sure. Yeah.
We'll show you some data today on we use the same exact video shots that I don't know if we're going to show the video or not, Nick.
Ah,
No, but we have the data points and the graph of the same shots that Jr. showed on in his podcast. Waldberg on Throwbot with the
pin up versus pin
radical
down.
versus pin
That,
up versus pin down.
is that something we want to bring up right now?
Um, we can, and then we'll go through some of the notes I have. So well, no,
So,
you know what? Let's wait a second. So
okay.
okay, so some of the notes I have, and I'm just going to read from them. We talked about the friction. So the difference, what the question is this: what is expected when a person gets two different layouts?
Hmm.
So I mean, you had a pro shop. What when you change the person's layout? I like this ball. I want to get another one. I want to do something different. What did you do for them?
Well, that scenario is actually pretty rare because most people, I would say the majority, 99.99% of people don't buy the same ball twice.
Exactly right. They don't do that nowadays, but in the old days they did. I mean,
Possibly.
yeah,
So, yeah. So, say for instance, back in the day, one that really sticks out was the Inferno.
okay,
The original Inferno. It was a symmetrical ball.
right,
And back then we had options with, extra holes. That was a big one. So for the guys that like to loop the lane, that like to
hmm,
really go around the pattern and had a
right,
little bit higher rev rate,
hmm,
higher pin layouts were actually really good. And
okay,
the guys that were a little more speed dominant that wanted to play straighter, pin down with a big extra hold down on the
right,
VAL
right,
was a better option. So,
right,
you know, could the pin down with a hold down work for that high rev player playing in
right,
and trying to hook the lane? Could he get it back to the pocket on a house shot? And the answer is probably yes.
right.
Now, the difference comes in with how much energy is that ball still going to have
Sure.
as it hits the pins and goes through.
But is that
Now,
what's expected nowadays when people go in and say, I want a different layout? Are they expecting it the way it goes through the pins, or are they anticipating a different motion?
I think the number one priority should be how much do you want this ball to flare? Where are you looking to fit this ball in your bag?
Okay.
Where is it going to fit in your arsenal, and what kind of
Right.
lane conditions are you looking to use it on? So that's all going to come into a play when choosing a layout. And
Right.
it's best to have these conversations with your pro shop operator that's willing to work with you and knows your
Sure.
game,
Hmm.
knows what you're bowling on, and has a good understanding,
Right.
So
Right.
it's, having a dull ball drilled, for max flare when you're bowling on a really dry house pattern that doesn't have any oil outside of 10 board,
Right.
you're going to struggle because the
Yeah.
ball.
So, but again, it comes down to, we have drill sheets, and they have different, with 5 different patterns on there, right?
Mhm.
And I always look at it and say, well, what are they expecting to see from pattern A to pattern D? You know, um, the pocket's 17 and a half board. If a ball hooks 1 or 2 more boards, you may not be able to see that, right? I
You might
mean,
not be able to, but that's the difference
that's the difference between hitting the pocket and not hitting the pocket.
between a strike and a wrap 10. I mean,
Exactly, exactly. So if it's 2 to 3 board difference in the way the ball the hooks, as a bowler watching it, of course you may not see that.
mhm,
But if I hit the 17 and a half board in the pocket and the next shot hit the 15 and a half board, you would see the results. So I guess you don't see the visually see it going down the lane, but you'll experience the results of where it hit going through the pins.
right.
That's the first part of it.
That's where you need to focus your eyes, really, is how
Yeah,
is that ball interacting with the pins?
with the pins, right?
'Cause you're gonna
Right.
know if it has energy when it's hitting the pins, if it's still
Yeah,
hooking and continuing
yeah,
through, or if it's rolling forward. So
exactly.
how many times have we had an asymmetrical ball with the low speed, low rev player, where the pin down
Is
all of a
always
sudden
better.
always looks more angular, more continuous than a pin up.
Right. But yet when you put the chart up,
Mhm.
the ball paths are very, very similar.
Very similar.
Very similar. Right.
Ho
So,
how they're interacting with the pins is so different because one maintained its axis rotation longer,
right.
and it has a better opportunity to strike.
Absolutely right. Um, so the part that we agree with JR on is the cover stock is probably 80% of the ball motion.
Mhm.
We agree with that. And he may think it's more. I'm just saying, I'll say 80 to pick a number.
Sounds good number, good
It's a
number.
good number, 80%, right? And the layouts basically tweak how the ball goes through the pins.
Right.
So if you separate the two, um, layouts don't matter for most of the lane.
Mhm.
They do matter significantly, and I guess he was amplifying it. I guess it's a huge difference going through the pins, and I'm saying a huge difference, and we'll show that. Again, it's just we're not marketing this. It's not a hype. We're not advertising it. We're using data from a
A robot
robot and
and a
a
laser guided tracking
tracking
system
system.
to
Other
give
than
us the
that,
numbers.
it's arbitrary. Other than those two, we just winging it with. Except we use a robot and a laser tracking system
And
to
it
get
isn't
those
our
numbers.
the only opinion is our opinion of the data, which was written down number for number.
Exactly. So we
So,
we don't have any. I have no dog in this fight, one way or the other. I'm just telling you what it is.
what we see.
What we see. Right. Exactly.
Mhm.
Um, so some other notes I wrote down was the pin up is stronger motion. Few balls. Very few balls are going to react in the oil or went into friction. It's the same. If it's totally oiled or totally dry, balls start to look more and more alike. If it's a flood, they all look alike. If it's bone dry, they all look alike.
Yeah,
You're not going to get
surface.
much difference, right? Surface,
You can get your
um,
ball to flare, but it's still not gonna pick up friction and change direction
right, right.
until
So
it exits that pattern and finds some dry boards.
exactly right. And pin up stronger as a stronger motion, the result of the drill pattern. It's the difference between a high flush shot and not being high flush. The difference between shooting a spare and having a strike could be the difference if you're not making a cut.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pins. Um,
And if you miss one of those hits per game, all of a sudden you're 10
lot.
pins off the pace each game.
That's right. Right. You know, but so to the naked eye, it's probably not visual until you see it go through the pins. We got that all that data for today. Um, Now, the most important thing is to match your style of bowler to the layout. They have to match so that the ball goes through the pins the right way.
Mhm.
Um, you know, and I don't know if he covered that at all in his video, but he talked about, um, you know, changing the layout, get more flair. Yeah, we want that for certain bowlers, but you know, having more flair for a low rev, low speed player is probably death.
Yeah, and
You know,
sometimes less flare, but a stronger cover is an option. So that's why
right?
we have layouts that offer that. The short pin layouts on ASIMs are very
Yeah,
effective, even
yeah,
on symmetrical balls for certain bowlers
right.
that want a little bit stronger cover, but can't necessarily keep that ball on target because it
Yep.
over flares and then, they don't have the ball
Yeah.
speed to get it down the lane.
And I think
So,
we've said that a lot now. Videos, especially under the low speed, low rev player, that this ball did not match up. The pin up drilling did not match up on that ASIM ball because of the way it went through the pins.
mhm,
It didn't look different going down the lane.
yeah.
It went through the pins differently.
Yeah, the relation of the entry angle, which is usually going to be higher on the pinup,
Right.
but it's going to narrow and taper off on the impact angle compared to
Yeah.
the pin down layouts for low speed, low rev, which you'll see a bigger difference in
Right.
in strength.
Sure.
And that's continuation. That's the start of a ball that's creating entry angle,
Right.
and that's the hardest part for those bowlers. The lower speed, low rev is, for sure over here.
Absolutely.
You're the king
Exactly.
of low flare,
Right.
low.
Right. Low speed ball. That's
Yeah,
my problem. So, you know, I know that, and I invented the pin down drilling for that reason for
because
bowlers like me,
out of
out of
necessity.
necessity. Right. So you
Yeah,
have to
you
have pin down. You know, and I can throw asymmetrical balls using pin down drillings. I also can throw stronger symmetrical balls with the short pin drillings.
mhm.
You know, provided I play with the surface. So you know, you're talking about matching it. So what we're going to talk about today is we're going to take that same bowler that Jr. used in his video, and we're going to show you the ball path, the graph. This is what Specto shows us. So you're right. Look at that. Look at the ball path of the two balls overlaid.
Mhm.
And it shows his video showed the same thing. They blurred right at the pocket. There it is.
Yep.
100% correct. The
First
two drill
37
patterns.
fir
Go ahead.
first 37 and a half foot of the lane. It was
Right.
virtually identical for both those bones.
Identical.
And guess what? The ball exited the pattern, started seeing friction.
Right. And then it varied. Now, in the case of this bowler, and we've seen with a higher rev players, the
Yeah,
separation got greater.
sure. Yeah, I mean, this is already a pretty big separation between pin up, pin down.
Right. Right.
Now, at the entry angle, you're not seeing a big difference because once again, at the break point there, at the 41 to 45, I think that's what Specto picks for
Yeah.
the entry angle.
Right.
There's not much difference in change of direction, but all of a sudden, you get
Yeah.
to the impact angle right before the pins.
Yep. There's
What
a
happened?
difference. There's a difference. Now we can blow that up to 1 inch equals 1 inch. It'd be a huge picture. But
Mhm.
you know, this is a chart. It's scaled down. But let's just look at some of the numbers for a second. Total boards crossed between the two balls were half a board, a little bit more, right?
Yep, 3/4 of a board.
Three
So
quarters of a
one
board,
1 inch mostly. Yeah,
right? You're not going to probably see that to the naked eye. Okay, let's
right.
go to the next thing. Hook power is the amount of boards crossed from the break point.
Mhm.
Okay,
And this
so
is where
here's
all the
what
difference is.
it's where the difference starts, right? So again, it's about 3/4 of a board, not a lot. Okay, the entry angles were almost the same,
Almost
identical.
identical.
So again, we hadn't seen any difference. Now we'll see a difference. The impact angle, which is greater with the pin up. Now, what that means is anytime the impact angle is greater than the entry angle, that means the ball is still continuing through the pins,
Still hooking as it's
still
going in.
hooking as it's going into the pocket through the pins.
Mhm.
So in the first ball, the pin down, they're closer. It's 4.23 versus 4.75. But it exits the pin deck on the 18 and a half board. So that means it entered the pocket on the 17 and a half board. I take that back. It's the 18th board, not the 18 and a half.
Yep.
It's a 17 and a half board it entered, and it only continued a half a board more.
Right.
period. That's it. That's specto. That's data. Now,
Yeah. It's still a
on the-
flush strike. Still a good shot.
still flush in the pocket, but where it continued through the pins, it only continued 1/2 board more once it entered the pocket. Let's go to the bottom ball. Same amount of hook, almost same amount of entry angle. Impact angle was greater. That's significantly greater. Even though it's only 1.2 degrees, it's significantly greater because that slight difference that we say is not noticeable or negligible in some people's opinion, but it exited the pin deck on the 22nd board. That means it continued 5 boards through the pins.
25%, 23% difference there between the
Right.
impact angle and the pin deck exit board compared to the pin deck.
Right. So total hook power, almost the same. Total boards crossed, almost the same. Entry angle, almost the same. How much energy the ball had going through the pins, that's
Not
a
the same.
big difference. It's 4 boards. That's
Yeah.
the difference of going between the 8-9 and deflecting to the 9.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Now, if you're a not a robot and you didn't hit the 17.5 board, and let's say you hit the 17 board, with the ball that continued, you'd probably send pins across the deck dancing all over the place. And with the pin down drilling, you would have probably left a flat 10.
Yeah. Or a 2-pin. You might
Or
have
a
skid
2-pin.
past. Yeah.
Right,
you
might
missed
have
left.
skipped past it. So
Yeah.
so when people say drill patterns don't matter, it depends on what your parameters are.
Yeah.
If the parameter is ball path, I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
I agree 100%.
And if if you're trying to just be cynical, like, oh, well, average Joe bowler is not going to notice the difference between this. Why should it even matter?
Let's talk about average Joe bowler for a second.
All right.
Okay, hypothetical. Average
Can
Joe bowler.
All the average Joes give me a hell yeah?
Hell yeah. So
Oh,
here,
yeah.
average Joe bowler hits the pocket, the same with both balls, continues the whole night, and he hits the pocket. Let's give him has a great night, hits the pocket 10 times.
That's I would take that.
Absolutely. He bowled good. He's average Joe bowler. Hit the pocket 10 times. With the pin down ball in that scenario, he probably would leave a few 10 pins.
Yes.
Okay. Let's say he left 2 more 10 pins than the other guy. And that's being generous. It's only 2.
Yeah.
3. We'll say 3. Okay.
2.5. Nah, 15's good. No, 10. You got to be 10.
It got to be 10 minutes. Yeah, 10. 15. No, with traffic. It is with traffic. Anyway, so he leaves 3 10 pins. So first of all, if they're in between strikes, it's a lot of pins.
Yeah.
It's in between a triple versus strike, spare, strike, or a double or 4-bagger, right? But on top of that, he's now shooting an extra spare or 2. Or 3.
Which he might miss.
Assuming he misses 1 spare, it's 22 pin difference between a strike versus not a strike versus the spare that he missed.
Yeah.
So now
20 pins plus the missed spare, it's 30 something
So
actually. Yeah.
Joe Bowler may not have noticed his ball motion, but guess what he noticed? His score.
Yeah.
You know, so again, people have different opinions. I don't think it's a topic that's arguable because what are we arguing? Ball path, or are we arguing ball motion, or are we arguing through the pins?
Phil,
There
this
is
is
no argument.
this is the internet. We can argue about anything. Anybody can argue about anything.
And apparently people do. I mean, they want to have discussions about, you know, we have all I want to deal in is fact. You know, this is not a philosophy class. You know, I mean, really, you know,
I crank,
I love
crank,
science,
therefore I strike. I should make that a t-shirt.
right? I mean, I'm a science guy when it comes to stuff like this and math.
Yeah.
You know, period. If you tell me it's 1 + 1 = 2, you can't have a different answer. It's not a hypothetical. So this is what we're talking about. We use data. We use only use a laser guided system and a throwbot
Yeah.
to throw the ball, so that we don't have somebody saying, was that pretty good?
In a
Did I hit
controlled
my
environment,
target?"
in a
controlled
lab.
environment, in a lab.
Yeah.
You know,
We got like Bunsen burners and beakers and stuff. It's like a legitimate lab.
we have chemists that do chemistry. They even have pocket protectors, some of them.
They
But this is
do.
what we do because we don't want to have that end. It's not solved problem. It's not a solved problem. If we want a ball to go through the pins a certain way, we build a ball to go through the pins and we test it. So it has to go in that environment with that type of player. And
Mhm.
you know what people really don't appreciate, maybe they do, and I don't think they do, is that we drill these two balls. We don't drill a ball for each player. We drill the ball and have this different players throw the same balls. So
Yeah,
you
same
see
ball.
the difference of a player throwing it.
Mhm.
You know, I could drill that ball for the low speed, low rev player, and it would look same strike percentage and everything else as the high speed, high rev player with a different drill pattern. But I don't do that. We drill this ball the same, and then you could see the difference when that player throws it. So that
Right.
one drilling is better for the player than another. And I said it earlier, I say it again. The higher the rev rate and the higher the ball speed, the more separation we see in those graphs. Mark Wahlberg is a matched player. He's a
Yeah.
stroker, right? I believe he's the stroker, not the power player.
He's the middle. Yep.
Middle, right. So that's middle, that's matched. And those two balls overlaid. As you get further away from them, there's separation, it increases.
Yeah.
The higher rev, higher speed players have a greater separation between the two drill patterns. So, yes, for the average guy in the middle, he's not going to see a big difference in ball motion. He will see a huge difference in the ball going through the pins. And I emphasize huge difference because when you have 4 boards of continuation through the pocket versus a half a board, that's a almost insurmountable difference.
That is a measurable difference when it comes to your score at the end of the night.
Absolutely right. And it's a significant difference in your score if you're not making all your spares.
Yeah.
If the
You give
ball
me-
you bring as your spare ball is not a spare ball, but an extra ball, and you're missing spares,
Yep. You give me 2 bowlers that both
Right.
enter the pocket at 17.5 board, one that exits the pin deck on average at 18 and one that exits the pin deck on 22.
right?
I will take 100% of the time the bowler that finishes left of the middle is going to strike a whole lot more. What's
whole
that
lot more.
percentage? I don't know. But
No, I don't know.
there's
that
not going to
either.
be very many corner pins, 10 pins.
Right.
There might be a 9 pin in there. There might.
Solid 8, solid 8, solid 9.
Well, the ball is running over the 8, but solid 8 for you.
That's true.
know.
You're right. Might be a 9 pin in there, but it just I don't know how else we could prove it. And again, this is not going to be an ongoing debate. Trust
Yeah.
me. This is a
We're-
one and out for us.
One and done.
One and done. We
However, it's not a one and done for me.
oh, you're going to still go after this?
I just have trouble letting go of things. So I'm going to. I actually have a ball laid out right now. Do you want to see it?
Let me say it.
So I have a ball, a hammer effect,
Yeah.
which is pretty much the hottest ball on the planet right now. You can't
Yes,
even
it
get
is.
them.
Can't even get them. They're so hot.
But I have a secret stash. And I
Yeah.
laid one out because I wanted to see if layouts truly mattered or not. And I really like to test the opposite ends of the spectrum. So if I have my favorite layout, which is 60 by 5 by 20,
Right.
I think I'm going to use the same layout, 60 by 5 by 20, but I'm going to flip flop the mass bias and the pin and use the
Wow.
pin as the mass bias and the mass bias as the pin.
Okay.
And why not? Because
Layouts don't matter.
science is fun. Layouts don't matter. This should be fine. I should be totally fine. So look for that. I'm going to test it soon. And
Oh, that's
this
pretty
should be-
interesting test. Right.
What happens if you flip flop the mass bias and the pin? We're going to find out. Do layouts matter?
You know why? Because science is fun, kids.
Because science is very fun, kids. And the other thing I did see, which you said you don't think people appreciate
Mhm.
what we do, but I think our ranking on this podcast might have gone up a few notches. I don't know if we're in the top 5 yet on Wednesdays at 3 p.m.
I don't think so either.
But Pete says this is the best podcast to date, in my opinion, hands down.
And Pete
So-
is
Pete is, I don't know who Pete is, but he is on the forefront of ratings when it comes to podcasts. So
He's
who knows who does the ratings for podcasts? We don't know, but obviously Pete's on the board. So
Peterson
Pete,
Point. He's the Peterson Point guy.
the Peterson rating. That's funny.